Good afternoon, folks. You are in the middle of another working week, so well done to you. We're halfway there. Well, over halfway there now, because you've technically finished your working day, and now you're listening to me. And if you're not finished with your working day, then I hope it's going really well, and I hope I can do something to entertain you for the next 30 to 45 minutes. First of all, please continue supporting Composite Games. They are doing a lot for the channel, as I've said before, so if you feel the need to get some hobby supplies or anything like that, head over to Composite Games. They can give you 5% off at checkout. They already do an extra 20% off, so you can get 25% off of your order at checkout. And also, before I go anywhere else, please make sure to support the goods merchant. They also do us a really sterling service. Looking at getting many things from them in the coming months. Dice shakers, all sorts going on over there. So, if you need any D&D supplies or peripherals that you really want to make your friends jealous with, then head on over to the goods merchant, especially if you're in America, because he is actually in California, and so they can actually help you out with a lot of stuff that's over there. And they, of course, do international shipping and things like that. I really need me one of these D&D screens when I start doing it in real life, now that we're all allowed to see each other again. But, yeah, thank you very much to them for supporting the channel. Make sure you go and support them, because every single time you support Goods Merchant, or, of course, Composite Games, you are helping me out big time with all sorts of things that can help me build the Astral Blades. It can help me give you more really cool prizes on the channel draws that we're going to be doing towards the middle of next month. So yeah, please continue to help them out for me. Thank you very much. And of course, the Patreon is down in the description below. If you want to support the channel, please do so. We are trying to reach our target of $750 or pounds a month, which will allow me to dial back the adverts and relying on ad revenue on YouTube, which would be amazing. So we're on our way. So if you like what I do, then please support me if you can. Channel memberships are also good for doing that as well. And yeah, that's basically it. Oh, by the way, doing any of those two things automatically gets you into our prize draw. And we do that in the middle of every single month. And the top prize next month is £30 in miniatures from Composite Games, just like it was the previous month. So, let's get on with some hobby nightmares, shall we? Let's have a little read. So the first one is by Wild Alaskan, and this is quite a lengthy one, so you'll have to bear with me whilst I do a little bit of talky. So, Wild Alaskan says, "Greetings and salutations, North. Since you have been featuring an assortment of RPG tales lately, I thought I'd send in one of my favourites. Yep, we've not had an RPG one for a couple of weeks. It's a bit of a long one, so top off your tea and get comfortable, okay? Well, you all heard the man. If you don't have any tea, you've got a beverage, sit back, chill out. In my creepy uncle story, I mentioned that the owner of my friendly local game store ran a Pathfinder game. Initially, it started out as myself and a couple of his friends, but he was always adamant that he wanted it to be a teaching game and would allow anyone to join if they were interested, and if the group became too large, he would consider splitting it into two separate groups. At the point where my story takes place, our party was up to 7 or 8 people, if memory serves. Yeah, 7 or 8 is too much. You should really cut them in half at that point. I mean the group, not the people. Yeah, you should really cut the group in half. I did that once with an RPG campaign, because when we did D&D, we got quite a lot of people involved. When we moved to do a sci-fi setting that I'd wrote, there were quite a few people wanting to be involved. There was like about 10 people in the end, so I split everyone up into 2 separate crews. Spaceship crews on different ships, and they would run around. One was called the Ares, and the other one was called the Bacchus. And they would head around the place, doing different missions. And they would actually, if Ares did a mission on a world, and then Bacchus went and did a mission on the world, sometimes they would actually see the consequences of the other crew's events, like what they did when they were on the world, things like that. So it really gave the world a really cool, lived-in feel that you don't really get with RPGs quite a lot when you're on the tabletop. So that's one way to do it. But yeah, definitely split them up if they get to 7 or 8 people. Wild Laskin continues. Now, as is common in any sort of game setting, a number of the players have become murder hobos, the sort of players who attack first, ask questions later. I even indulged in it a bit myself, But as the game grew larger, it became a bit tiresome. Yeah, I'm going to say, this is going to go on forever, because I'm going to stop a few times in this one, but as somebody who writes my own campaign settings, and puts a lot of effort into the rules and the immersion that's in the setting, when people start doing murder hobo things and not taking it seriously, I get personally offended. I know I shouldn't, but I do take it quite personally. I'm like, look, I spent a lot of time on this, so either you... I don't mind you having a laugh during the game, do you know what I mean? Especially if it's not... If it's like in the lore somewhere, if you have a bit of a laugh, that's fine. But like, just killing people for the sake of killing people, and being a dick because you think this is your sandbox to act out all of your weird fantasies, that's not what I built this for, so kindly sling your hook and get in the sea. Anyway, people who were lower in the initiative order rarely got to participate. Yeah, exactly. The DM was becoming mildly frustrated at having to change the plot to accommodate the party having just killed the NPC that we needed vital information from. I'm not normally the type of person to interfere with how others want to play the game, but something had to be done. And thus was born my newest character, the anti-murder hobo. Oh, I think I'm going to like this story. The premise was fairly simple. I made a half-elf oracle and piled on all the initiative modifiers so my character would always go first. I gave the character ridiculously high charisma to make his spells more potent and difficult to resist, which also gave me the advantage at the diplomacy and bluff skills. Then I loaded up on protection and mind control spells, forbid action, calm emotions, wave of ecstasy, etc. The general premise of our campaign was that a corner of the kingdom was being attacked by dragons. The king could not spare any of his army to investigate because there was a war going on, as he was currently at war with a neighbouring country, okay? A summons was put out calling anyone with an appropriate skill to assist in putting an end to this threat, with a handsome reward offered to any group that returned to the king with proof of having killed a dragon. Our party had been travelling the countryside for a number of sessions, fighting baddies where we could, gathering information where we could. Eventually, we began to encounter signs of dragon attacks. Small farms and villages had been burned to the ground. No one knew where the dragons had come from, or why they had chosen to start attacking. After interviewing a number of victims, we were given directions to a nearby city where it was suggested that we might find more information. As we approached the city, we could see from a distance that things were awry. Black smoke filled the sky above the city, and the smoke was tinged with a flickering orange underglow. We raced towards the city and saw a lone dragon making sweeping passes across the city, breathing fire down on the buildings. A couple of long-range spells thrown at the dragon did enough damage to get its attention, and it flew away. We entered the city through the south gate, then headed to the city square. This was roughly a square in shape, with north, south, east, west facing roads, dividing neatly into 4 sections. In the middle, at the intersection of these 2 roads, was a large building which served as a city hall and public meeting space. As we neared the building, we were approached by a flustered middle-aged man who introduced himself as the mayor's assistant. We quickly learned that the mayor was missing, and if anything bad had happened to him, it would be a devastating blow for the city. Their system of government was based on wealth. The richest person in the town was automatically the mayor, and if they died or retired, the position would go to the next richest person in town, and so on. The belief was that being rich meant that you could be successful in managing a business, which meant that you could be successful at running the city. Wow, yeah, that's kind of like how modern politics works. Weird. The problem with this system, in the mayor's assistant's eyes, was that the next richest person in town was a dwarf, who had a very bad attitude and was generally disliked by pretty much everybody. Our party volunteered to search the city, helping out where we could and looking for the mayor. After a brief discussion, we agreed to split the party into 4 groups, and each go searching through 1 quarter of the city. At this point, you may think, being an anti-murder hobo, my motives would be pure, and I would assure you they were not. As soon as splitting the party was brought up, I immediately volunteered to start by going east from the square, to the red light district, and the ritzy rich people's residential area and beyond. Our party's cleric offered to join me, and so we went. Alrighty. Our first encounter involved a brothel that had been completely burned to the ground. Amongst the smouldering ashes was a lone woman, scantily dressed and covered head to toe in soot. As we approached, we noticed that in addition to the soot, the woman was covered in a lot of blood. She was sobbing so hard that she didn't even notice our approach, and so, by the time we were close enough to announce ourselves, we could clearly see that she was holding a knife and kneeling before the corpse of a man who had clearly been stabbed to death. I greeted her and gently encouraged her to drop the knife. When she did, which she did, she held her hands out, assuming that we had come to arrest her for the murder she'd committed. I assured her that we were simply outsiders, combing the town looking for the mayor and offering assistance where possible. At the mention of the mayor, her face dropped and she began crying again. With a little gentle persuasion from me, she told us her story. The body was indeed that of the mayor. He was a frequent client at the brothel who liked to play rough with the ladies. His behaviour was tolerated because of his power and position. With the dragon flying overhead and setting everything on fire, this lady figured she wouldn't be alive much longer and decided to get a little revenge on the mayor for mistreating her and her co-workers. When she was finished with her story, she again questioned whether or not we would take her to the authorities. I glanced over at the cleric, shrugged, and assured the young lady that we'd only seen the mayor's body and there was no way to ascertain how exactly he'd died. With that, we moved on down the road and the DM checked in with the other members on the party to see what they were doing. Alright, cool. By the time the DM got back to me and the cleric, I'd done a bit of math and determined that we could generate 28 gallons of water every 6 seconds, at will, using the Create Water spell. We strolled down the eastern thoroughfare, casually dumping huge amounts of water onto the burning buildings as we passed. At the same time, we came to a fork in the road and were faced with a choice. Head north to the rich neighbourhood, where no one was likely to be home, as it was the middle of the day, or head south to the more populated commercial residential district. As the cleric and I discussed our options, we were approached by a very distressed and frantic dwarf. When he saw us magically dumping water onto buildings, he ran over to us and began barking orders. "You there, stop what you're doing immediately and come with me. My house is on fire and you need to put it out right now." I waved my hand slowly in front of me in my best Jedi mind trick impersonation and replied sweetly, "Why didn't you go to put it out yourself?" The dwarf failed his save and his demeanour instantly changed. "Oh, that's an excellent idea. I'll go do that. Have you seen any buckets around?" The cleric shook his head and the dwarf ran off back the way he'd come. Our decision had been made for us at that point. The cleric and I turned south and the DM moved on to other party members. Alright. When our turn came back up again, the DM had us approaching the southeast corner of town, where one of the town's landmarks had once stood. It had been a 4-storey inn, family-owned and operated for generations. It had taken a lion's share of the dragon's fury, and was now a burning pile of rubble. More than a dozen people stood in the street, weeping and watching the blaze. The cleric and I began dumping water onto the fire, whilst I spoke to the people in the street. It turned out that they were all guests and employees of the inn. The owner of the inn, an elderly widow, had refused to leave the building until she was certain that everyone was out. She had helped a number of people to the exit, going back each time to find more. Just as she shoved the last employee out, the structure finally gave way and collapsed on top of her. It was clear that no one could have survived such a collapse. Several of the people told me stories of how she'd been the sweetest old lady they'd ever met, right up until the very end. With the fire now put out, and nothing else for the cleric and I to do, we moved on. Soon, after passing the inn, we came upon a row of houses, some of which were still alight. While we worked to put out the fires, we heard what sounded like a young child crying. After a minute or two, we were able to pinpoint the source. One of the houses on the row had collapsed completely from the fire damage, but the front porch was miraculously intact. Hiding under the porch was the partially buried remains of the house. What was a small boy, about 8 years old. We got him out and asked about his parents, who it turns out were unfortunately inside the house when the attack began. "Do you have any other family in the town?" we asked him. "Well, my grandma runs the inn around the corner there," he replied. Our hearts sank a little bit. We told the kid to follow us, to stay close and to stay behind us. We continued on, slowly approaching the south gate. One of our party members came running from that direction and told us we needed to come along immediately because there was about to be a riot. With the kid following behind as instructed, we double-timed to the gate. When we arrived, the situation was already pretty grim. The city guard had locked the gate and were refusing to let anybody out. This had been an order from the mayor when the attack began. Nearly 60 townsfolk, armed with whatever tools or rocks they'd picked up, wanted to get out, preventing them from leaving with the captain of the guard and 6 or so guards. Everybody was shouting, and it was clear from a first glance that the situation had the potential to become very violent very quickly. Sorry, I needed to do a bit of a yawn there. One of our characters, the DM informed us, the DM informed us that we had 6 seconds until a full-blown riot began. The cleric took the child into a nearby shop that was still intact and watched from the doorway. I frantically looked around for a wagon or cart to stack a sack of crates I could stand on to get the crowd's attention, but nothing was available. I took a quick glance at my spell list and noticed that out of the spells I'd taken at character creation but never used thus far in the campaign, Levitate. I cast it and rose several feet into the air. It was from this vantage point that I finally addressed the crowd. Good citizens of the city, your attention please. I am Wild Alaskan, and my party and I are here at the behest of the king to hunt dragons and end their reign of terror in this land. As you can see, we have defeated the dragon that attacked you, a blatant lie, and we have located the mayor, technically true. We have done what we can to assist in putting out the fires, but we need your help. Please, end this madness and return to your homes. Help out your neighbours, repair and rebuild. I cast a helpful little spell to aid in my rousing speech, and the DM asked me for a bluff check, which I handily passed. The angry mob immediately began to disperse, and I slowly floated down to the ground. I walked over to the captain of the guard and pulled her aside. We didn't actually kill the dragon, I said quietly. We only scared it off, and the mayor is dead. You'll probably need to stay vigilant in case the dragon returns. Since the captain had been part of the crowd that had fallen from my previous stretching of the truth, the DM had me roll another bluff check to convince the captain, and I rolled a natural 1. The captain chuckled, nodded and gave me a wink. Sure, she said. With nothing more to do at the south gate, my party and I returned to the centre of town, where we met up with the mayor's assistant. He insisted that we rest in the comfort of the private chambers at the top of the City Hall building, which were normally reserved for visiting dignitaries. We accepted and retired for the night. In the morning, we awoke to a clamour outside. We gathered ourselves quickly and rushed downstairs to see what was going on. The commotion, as it turned out, was a line of townsfolk with fruit baskets and other gifts wanting to thank us. Off to one side, the mayor's assistant was having a very heated discussion with a group of men. We approached, and he broke away from the group to apologise for the crowd. He then introduced us to the City Council of Elders, who all expressed their gratitude for the saving of their town. They then urged the assistant to present us their idea. With the mayor dead, and the dwarf hated, and the beloved innkeeper dead, it seemed that there was no one who could run the city. The only sensible choice was to request that I be made the new mayor and... What? I said to the DM out of character. The DM gave me a wry smile. He said, you created water out of thin air, you put out fires all over town, floated above the ground and dispersed an angry crowd. So these people, you are basically Jesus Christ. The entire table erupted into laughter. I couldn't think of a good counter-argument, and so I agreed to the council's terms and set up a magical emergency telephone of sorts so that the assistant could contact me at any time. With that, I left the assistant in charge of the day-to-day operation of the city, and my party and I went off in search of more dragons. I mean, it's not a nightmare, but it is a cool story. I like that one. That's cool. Alright, so, next we have the Dino Shepherd. How's it going, man? So, he says... Let me just make this a bit bigger here. He says, I have finally had my first hobby nightmare, says Dino Shepherd. When I'm out, there is quite a bit of a 40k competitive scene. Okay, we are even having our first grand tournament coming soon. Okay, so he's at university and he's having his first grand tournament coming soon. Brilliant. With all the hype for local tournaments, many players I meet at the hobby store looking for games want to practice so they can work out their armies. After the price hikes on models and local events, I find myself painting models that weren't efficient or very good at their job in tournaments because they were cheap and very fun to work with. Trying to find a game time with those kind of narrative games was difficult because I kept getting crushed by the tournament players. So, after lots of encouragement and willpower, I organised a narrative crusade. Ah, this is the thing, right? You go looking for the players that you want to play with. Excellent. I like your thinking. I advertised it to the local groups, and even the local Games Workshop manager was very supportive in the endeavour and offered to tell some new players to join in. I created a Discord and then mismatched the rules and different ideas from our community. Everything was set up and we had about 25 people sign up. The system was simple. Opening night we would have our fun intros to the other Crusaders and tell them about the story we'd cooked up for our own armies. Our system next to the Secretix Maledictum, the Great Rift, was getting more revealed and the players' Crusade forces were going in to recover or conquer the system. Many more twists in the making to be sure. After that, however, we would use the Discord to set up games and meetups with your chosen opponent, with weekly updates as to how the story was progressing. The nightmare begins when we had a last-minute sign-up that offered one of our players a ride the opening night and back home again. Since the player that night needed a ride lived quite far away, he accepted the offer quite gladly. I need to say, this is a really cool idea for a campaign. It's something that I quite like to do for the channel at some stage. Opening night, about half the people that signed up actually showed up. Typical. We pick matches and locations and get gaming. I played my first game of Death Watch vs Salamanders in a mission where we had to pick up a relic and take it back to our side. My opponent, let's call him Trevor, had a bike captain that is tough as nails. Somehow, through a warlord trait and relic, I could only wound him on 6s. He drove in, took the relic and ran away, leaving his intercessor squads to gun down the rest of my units. Pretty boring game, having been crushed so harshly, but I passed it off as my force being really narrative based. Trevor had to take another player home, so they left for the night. After a big night of gaming and getting to know all the Crusaders, I went home a bit exhausted. I made one check on the Discord before bed and found a truckload of messages. Yeah, I know how that feels, man. Trust me. Come to find out, the player who was given the ride home from Trevor had a bad interaction with Trevor on the way home. Trevor had called him some very rude names, like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I can say that. It's a derogatory name for gay people, which starts with an F and ends with a T. Let's leave it there. He called him names like that out of jest, and the player never wanted to ride with Trevor again. Fair enough, the player also wanted me to talk to Trevor about it so it didn't happen to any other Crusaders. I gave Trevor a final warning and told him that anything else will get him banned from the group. He responded in the high and mighty way that guy does, but agreed to stop. 1 week goes by and another set of Crusade games are played. That Saturday, after Trevor's game, the next round of messages come in from his next opponent. His next opponent, let's call him Ryan, had quite a few questions with me about Trevor's army. Ryan didn't have much experience fighting Space Marines or Salamanders. He loves Harlequins and Admech, everything but Space Marines, basically. Trevor had given that bike captain 2 Crusade relics and a Warlord trait that gave him quite a few more durability buffs. Rule-wise, but that's fine. But Ryan had also brought up how Trevor had fudged damage values on weapons and had pulled some turn 1 deep strike with Terminators and Phobos armoured Primaris units. Cheating is not allowed in our Crusade, and power gaming is highly discouraged, and so I addressed this with Trevor. He still used his "I know better than you" way of speaking, and that definitely didn't help his situation. So I told him, "I'm sorry to say, but your behaviour in this group hasn't kept the spirit of the Crusade. We can't keep you in the group, and hope you find groups that are more suited to you and your type of gaming elsewhere." Crap. Reading that back, I sound way too corporate. Anyway, Trevor is gone and everyone is much happier with the Crusade. Hope you have a great day. No worries, man. Cheers, Dino Shepherd. In all honesty, dude, that was a really cool way of handling it. I know people are going to say, well, people should be able to play the game however they want. Yeah, true. But also, like, if there is a campaign that, it is a narrative campaign, and it is made in a way, and you're given the premise of what it is, then you don't really have a right to complain about it when you go in there and you act in a different manner, right? I had to do a climb down with Elden Ring, didn't I? Because I realised I was going into Elden Ring and expecting the game to conform to what I wanted it to do, when it didn't. You know what I mean? It wasn't my kind of game, and so I could either play the game or leave, right? I decided to play the game and had a decent time in it in the end. Still not my kind of thing. I don't think I'd play it again, but, I gave it a go, and it wasn't my kind of thing. And so you don't have the right to go into anywhere, and it's any crusade game. I don't care how neckbeardy you are, or how much you like to, or how much you think he was in the right for saying shit like that to somebody, and how the guy in the car should man up or something. I don't care. If you're told how people want to react, or how people are in a certain group, and you act in a certain different way, then you should be expected to be gatekept. I'm sorry, this is what it is. We do similar things on the Discord as well, where we have certain levels of behaviour that we expect people to abide by, and then they get really salty when we essentially call them out for not abiding by those rules. It's like, well, you knew what the rules were, so don't break them, or you'll be gatekept. That's just how it is, You've got to police your own hobby. And what this person is doing, in a healthy way, Dino Shepherd is policing his own hobby. He's saying, look, this is what I like about the hobby, and so I created my own space to go and, fight games in the way that I want to fight them, right? Because Warhammer is very nebulous. You don't have to play it in a set certain way. But what this person has done is he's gone out of his way to create a space for people like him to go and play narrative games. If you don't want to go in there and play ball, then fuck off and do something else. Go play somewhere else. Easy done, isn't it? Easy done in the end. Anyway. Right. So, next is by Faye Touched. Hello, Faye Touched. Faye Touched says, "Hey North, big fan, been watching you since before the regular Hobby Nightmares segment and loving how your channel has grown. Thanks, man. I have a horror story about old friends moving and overall how crappy some people can be. Background, I got into Warhammer during 3rd edition. Didn't play many games, but one kid got the rest of us interested, so a handful of us started collecting. Same thing happened to me, actually, 3rd edition. I wanted Marines because I was an Edge teen and wanted the Dark Angels. Oof, I know. As the years went on, I ended up moving before high school to a cornfield town way up north of the state. I think you're in the Midwest, but we'll see. Here is where I played most of my games and met one of my best friends for life. Let's call him Mike. His parents were a little better off and he had about 3 2,000 point armies, even the brand new Tau back then, and his parents, how I got up to 2,000 points for the Chaos Battle Force set for Christmas. Yeah, I turned traitor. So his parents got you a 2,000 points battle set? Fucking hell. One weekend, I got in contact with one of my old friends from the other town, and he agreed to sleep over and bring his Imperial Guard force. Let's call him Andrew. It was off to a bad start. Walking into the door, Andrew was calling me Gimpy, and then throughout the dinner, I walk with 2 left feet. I didn't notice, but my mother did at the time and said something about it to me that I shrugged it off. Yeah, some of these are hard to read, and I have no idea why. Some of them are just like the wording is a bit off. Doesn't matter, man. Let's carry on. So he's being a bit of a dick to you as soon as you walk in, essentially. I was way too excited for the massive 3-way battle for tomorrow. We got our armies and head over to Mike's house for the game, where we find out me and Mike have 2,000 point armies, whilst Andrew only has 1,200. So Mike, being a great guy, said he would let Andrew borrow some of his Imperial Guard forces for the game. So we had a battle with the 3 of us. Andrew was being a dick, making small rude comments that went over my head, but Mike said something at the end saying my friend was a dick, and I trust and believe Mike. Alright? Now, we pack up and get ready to head back to my house, as Andrew's parents are coming to pick him up. Once Andrew is done, we get a call from Mike's parents asking if Andrew had left. Apparently he had taken about 500 points of Mike's forces. Wow, I was left with a sick pit in my stomach, so I called Andrew to confront him about it. He said Mike had plenty, his family were better off than him. So after my mother called his mother, we made the long trek and got about 350 points back. At that point, his mother was tired and just wanted to go. We came back with what we could return, but feel shitty knowing we didn't get everything. Sorry for the story, just remember who your real friends are, beware those posing as them. Thank you for allowing me to share, and next time I'll share a D&D story with it's far more recent. Have a good day, North. Alright, cheers, Phaetos, that's really cool. Yeah, stealing's not cool. Stealing is not cool at the best of times. Yeah, that is a really shitty thing to do, and I don't I'm getting the feeling you guys are pretty young because your parents are driving you around, and this is written like you're pretty young, like you're a teenager. If you're not, I apologise. But yeah, it's really shitty finding out who your real friends are, and I hope that person grows up as they get older, because stealing models is not great. Mike may be well off, but he seems like a pretty decent dude, all in all, to be honest. Yeah, it is what it is. Alright. So, Custodian Andrew has written in, and he says, Greetings, Northern. This isn't a hobby nightmare. This is a story on how Abaddon the Despoiler changed my life. Okay. I've been a massive fan of Warhammer 40k since 3rd edition, plodding my way through painting endless models and reading White Dwarf magazines for years without having the confidence or friend circles to learn the game, so I've never really played. I left the hobby around 7th edition and kept up with news and what's happening. At the time I was working as an ambulance crew in the NHS, cheers for that, man, good job, where after a traumatic Christmas night shift I got diagnosed with PTSD and depression, and I was off sick for a couple of months. My shrink asked about hobbies and thought going back to it would be a good idea. And so I did. And it was. Staying up drinking and drunk painting Mortarion into the morning sometimes turned out rather well. I ended up leaving my job as similar incidents at work kept happening, and that's when I called an end to my dream job. Yeah, it's always shitty when that happens, when you get a dream job and then, you know, you've just got to walk away because it gets... Yeah, oh boy, I know how that goes. This was at the start of Nurgle's year, and we all know what that means. My job was at a fast food chain with the golden arches, and I was feeling a bit low. My new job. Coming from a career to this at the time prime age of 33 was a blow. This is when Abaddon comes along. I was painting him in sub-assemblies, and I put a pic of the base on the 40k Facebook page. About an hour or so later, I get a DM from some random girl who saw what I painted and liked it. As a chap who'd been brought up well, I played the modest painter and guided her to my Instagram page. We talked some more, and I said that she could be the first to see the finished model, and she said she'd love it. And she did. I thought that would be the end of it, but we kept talking, which turned into a very late night FaceTime chats, and finding out she lived in the north, and I was as far south as you could go without getting your feet wet. Which is like Brighton or Bournemouth or somewhere. Okay, I thought we could just be internet friends. After about a month, she invited me to meet her up north, and I agreed. We hit it off like old friends. While at GWHQ, we discussed me moving up north, and a month or so later, I was a southerner lost up north. A month goes past, and we found out that we were expecting our first. Fucking hell. At the time of me writing, we are 9 days away from Squig arriving into this crazy world, and my life has changed so much for the better, apart from the pile of potential which continues to grow. It's fair to say that without Abaddon the Despoiler, I would never be where I am now, a stepdad and a father to be heading back into the NHS soon. Just need to learn to play now. Keep up the good work. Me and the missus would enjoy listening to your videos, and this will either make her cry or cringe. Probably both, to be honest with you. Right, so, well, if you're in the north, let me know. I'd teach you how to play the game, definitely. And I've got other friends in the north who would teach you how to play the game too. But yeah, congratulations, man, on finding somebody through the power of the hobby. That's awesome. That's really pretty cool. It is strange how life has these divergent paths. I tend to find the more you try and force things, the more that they just won't work out. Do you know what I mean? And what you did there was really good. You became somebody's friend, and that person became interested in you. And then all of a sudden, you're together, you're having kids, and you're forming a bond that is very, very real. And that is how most healthy relationships start, in all honesty. So, well done to you. I hope things work out. And, you know, keep me updated if you want to take me up in that intro game. Let me know. But let's move on to our next story, shall we? So, our next story is from Fieldy. Alrighty. So, Fieldy says, Hey Exile, I wanted to share a story about a real horror story that happened at my local gaming club. We were running a Dark Crusade style of game based on a single planet. For those of you who don't remember, Dark Crusade was a Dawn of War game where you had a single planet called Kronos, and you would like, almost like Total War, where you try and take sections of it from other people on the map. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. So you'd fight a battle to take a portion of the map, like a refactory or a palace or something, and it would give you boosts for your next battle in the game. And that was something that people now use as to in the actual game of Warhammer 40,000. So he says it was a Dark Crusade style of game based on a single planet, taking locations and all that jazz for different factions. I have a massive Necron force, and so I agreed to supply the big bad for the campaign, whilst a friend of mine, Mike, played Primaris Astral Knights, so it made for a fantastic themed campaign. We were the two linchpins around which the other armies would spin. Mike's wife also played in the campaign with her Dark Eldar, and actually she did okay. She was holding her own on the main map, and the campaign was really heating up heading into Christmas, where we did a few big games. I hate Apocalypse, so steered clear of those, to really tie things together for the Christmas break. On the run-up to Christmas, we had seen Mike and his wife getting a bit angsty with each other from time to time. Nothing major, just little snaps here and there. Mike is a really decent guy and has helped me out of a lot of scrapes in the past, even letting me stay on his couch when I had my divorce. And he tends to go with the flow, which is great. He's always going out of his way to help folk out when they are starting in the hobby, either getting them new models or making sure they know how to play the game. And he's a teacher, and he's really, really cool, right? And he even owns a few hobby stores after spending the inheritance that he got from his parents. That's really cool. He spent it to, like, you know, get other people involved in the hobby with his hobby stores. Awesome. Anyway, his wife, let's call her Joanne, ends up teaming with a few Eldar players in the campaign to inexplicably start attacking Astral Knight holdings on the campaign map, forcing Mike to fight her on the tabletop. Okay, this sounds incredibly toxic already. The odds were stacked against him, as he was fighting 3 armies and couldn't really afford to fight them all, and so he lost more than he won, much to her delight. She high-fives the dudes in her team every week, and even starts smacking their arses like they are on an NFL team or something. She then started giving other players resources, so they would go after Mike in the campaign, and he finally called her out at home, so he tells me, saying that her passive-aggressive bullshit is starting to ruin the hobby for him. She pulls out the victim card and tells him this is why women don't feel comfortable in the hobby, because of men and their little egos. Right, okay, I'm going to stop right here for now. Yeah, when a toxic woman, like, wants to go after you, they will always go after your manhood. That's the main thing they do all the time, is they go after your manhood. They're not saying, insinuating that you're not man enough to handle them, or that, or other men would sort of put up with it better because they're real men, shit like that. This is toxic femininity 101. That's what that is. You hear about toxic masculinity enough. This is toxic femininity, and it's 101. Manipulation and attacking your own self-worth. This is 101, definitely. This is... I bet you we can get people in the comments who've come across it before. It's shit. I hate it. And it is an instant dismissal for me. Like how GW instantly dismiss you from your job if you sell stuff that you got on a discount to other people? Yeah, well, this is me. But as soon as I get behaviour like this, instant dismissal. Gone. See you later. I'd rather be on my own. I don't care how hot you are. I'd rather have my hand and be on my own, thank you. Right? Just get in the sea. Off you go. Goodbye. Anyway, back in the store, and on the run-up to the Christmas, she is flirting with one of the guys on her team, a real simp and fellow Eldar player, constantly hanging around her like a bad smell and looking down her shirt. I picked up on this, but right now Mike just looks dumb with the situation and wants to enjoy his hobby. Here is where my story goes into second-hand info for me, so third-hand for you, unfortunately. Over Christmas, Joanne invites this Eldar simp to a work night out she is on, and they end up making out while she is drunk, quote-unquote. Okay, stopping it right there again. Yeah. If your partner and I'm going to say this from a male point of view, because, you know, I'm a man. If your partner goes out and makes out with somebody else or does anything with anyone else and says that they're drunk, fucking get rid of them. They are manipulating you. They are trying to lie to you. They are stringing you along. Get rid of them. Drink is no excuse. It's no excuse for doing anything with other people. It isn't. Because you knew the situation you were in when you started drinking. So yes, drink may make you act out in ways that you shouldn't do, if it hits you in a certain way, but you knew exactly what you were getting into when you started drinking. Especially if you're in a situation like this, when you know somebody is there that you may end up making a mistake with if you're drunk. And if you think that way, why are you with that person in the first place? I know so many relationships where people just would never dream of that, no matter how pissed or drunk or on drugs they get. The only way it would ever happen is if they literally were like lying there and the other person took advantage of them and they weren't moving. That's actually the only way that it would happen. If you're not in a relationship like that, then get out. Then get out. Expect the best. That's all you need to do, guys. Expect the best. Totally expect the best. I have a video coming out probably tomorrow on confidence. I'm going to do the Missing Legions probably over the weekend or next week. But I'm going to do a video on Missing Legions in Horus Heresy. But tomorrow is going to be a confidence one. Because I think a lot of people need to hear it. Because I'm getting more and more messages that don't want to be read out on Hobby Nightmares about guys not having the confidence to, or hating themselves and being down on themselves. So I'm going to build you all up tomorrow. Right? That's my job. I'm going to do that tomorrow. But today, yeah, if you're in a relationship like this, kick it to the fucking curb. Get her in the sea. Get in the bin. Anyway. Back to the story. She admits this to Mike the next day in tears, and, surprisingly, he kicks her out. Well, not surprisingly to me, he did the right thing. At which point, she comes to my and my partner's flat to relay the whole story and asks to stay in our spare room, which we agree to. Come January, we continue the campaign, and Joanne sends a text to the group saying she is not in the campaign anymore and needs to withdraw as she's looking for a new place to live. Cue the guilt tripping. Eldar Simp starts to say underhanded things about the situation in real life, and so I pull him to the side and boot him from the campaign. Good lad. Good lad. Zero tolerance on home wreckers. Fuck him off. Get him out. He should have been gone the minute that came up. He should have been gone. When the manager of our store finds out the situation, he makes the decision to just ban him outright from the store until the situation is resolved. And what of Mike, you ask? He is seeing a quite fit in the UK means hot. He is seeing a quite hot hippie woman right now, in her early 30s. She does web design. She's normal aside from the wacky sensing crystals she has. They seem to be getting on, and it's summer now, so they've been going out for about 6 months. The divorce is in the mail, apparently. This seems harsh for a single kiss, but it is what it is. Everybody has their limits with bad behaviour. Anyway, that's my Hobby Nightmare. Thanks for reading it out. Best Fieldy. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's going too far. I have a zero tolerance policy myself. In fact, as soon as I get a whiff of dishonesty in terms of other people, I leave. It's happened before where a person that I've been dating has flirted with somebody else or has spoken about somebody else in a way that's a bit disrespectful to me. And I've just pulled them aside and said, if that's who you are, I'm not with you anymore. That's it. We're done. And do you know what? They've always been shocked. And they've always been, well, but, I was only having fun. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Flirt with somebody else, you're done. You're gone. You're finished. Because, as far as I'm concerned, if you show disloyalty there, where does it stop? And why should I put up with it? Is what it is. I've been in extremely healthy relationships before, where women haven't done that, where they've been completely respectful, and it just hasn't worked out in the end. But we've been just amazing together whilst we've been together, and they've enriched my life before I've gone on and I met somebody else, right? When we've broken up. That's the standard. That shouldn't be the outlier. That should be normal, right? And if I meet somebody who doesn't meet those standards, goodbye. Goodbye. I'm not telling the kids that we have together that when we met, you were flirting with other people. You know, you're not the mother of my kids. See you later. It's what it is. Respect yourselves, guys. Know that you're the prize. Look in the mirror. Know that you're the prize. Exactly. You know, have a backbone. Tell them to piss off. Get them in the bin. And leave them there. Right? Same goes for girls as well. Know your worth. I know I say this to men because, you know, I am one. And I think that a lot of us in nerddom need building up a bit. A lot of you need older brothers, types like that. And you may not have them. You may not have dads. I'm even planning. The first video I'm going to do, I think, when I get my webcam, is I'm going to show you guys how to groom properly. I think that'd be really cool. I've gotten requests for that in the past. Where I'm going to get some shaving foam, show you how to shave properly, show you what products you need to make yourself smell nice, show you what products you need to get rid of your acne, things like that. All things like that you can do to make yourself look better and smell better going out. Things that you can do about your wardrobe to make yourself look like you're actually taking care of yourself. Shit like that. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I get a webcam, is do something like that. Because I'd really like to do it. Probably not at my desk. But I'm going to get a webcam that can plug into my phone, so I can, you know, do it around the house and stuff, but still have a 4K webcam. So, you know, I think it's important that you guys get built up. I think it's important that you have somebody there who tells you these things and doesn't just say, hey, just be confident. What do you mean, just be confident? These are scientific people you're talking to. You can't just tell them to be confident and they just go out and do it. That's not how it works. You've got to give them means to go out and do those things. So I'm going to try and do that as I go. But for now, just try and mend that respect for yourself. If you do not respect for yourself, nobody else will, especially not women. I know that sounds harsh. It sounds very, very harsh, but they won't. You know? Same thing goes for women as well, actually. You know what I mean? But I do it from a male point of view because most of my listeners are male. And to be honest with you, you know, a lot of you have told me that you need help. And so here you go. You're getting it. So, have respect for yourself. Kick people like this from the curb. Don't expect anything less than the best or absolute loyalty from the person that you're with. And there you are. And if you're ever in doubt, ask yourself, is this the mother of my kids? Would I be proud to tell my children how me and their mother met? If the answer is no, you know where the door is, guys. I suggest you use it. Anyway, thank you very, very, very much for watching. I have a wonderful sponsor in the goods merchant that I would like you to go and follow. He has been so nice to me since I've started doing this. Like he's been great, and yeah, he's more than happy to supply things for the prize draws going forward too. So that'd be really nice when we get that on the go. So please go and support him if you need any sort of peripherals for Dungeons and Dragons or 40k. He does make them for 40k as well. You simply just have to go on there and give him whatever sort of request that you want, and he will sort you out. I'm sure. Very talented guy. And please make sure you keep supporting Composite Games. They do a hell of a lot for the channel as well. Literally, they are helping me build the Astral Blades, and they're helping me with the prize draw that we're doing in the middle of every single month. Our next prize draw is a month from today. It is on the 22nd of July. So it's this time next month. So if you want to get involved in that, sign up to the Patreon. Any price point doesn't matter, or sign up to become a member of the channel to be entered into our prize draw. You have two chances to win £30 of free models from Composite Games, courtesy of yours truly and a few lovely sponsors that we've got that I'll call out near the time. So, love you all long time. Have a really good day. Have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow when we're going to go over a bit of confidence, and then hopefully I'm going to see you on Friday. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe. Take care.